Welcome back, guys, to our second interview. Today we're talking to Warwick from Pukemokemoke. Pukemokemoke is a small reserve just out of Hamilton. The interesting thing about it, it's not a government-owned or run reserve. So we're going to talk to Warwick about what that means and what it takes to have a reserve like that. So, Warwick, what's the story behind Pukemokemoke?
Pukemokemoke.
Moke?
Pukemokemoke.
Okay.
Pukemokemoke in Maori means hill alone. It stands out in the middle of a great big flat area of farmland, and it was a part of the trekking journey of Maori way back. And they had a little pa at the top, and it's a marvellous lookout point. If you get to the top, you can see the whole of the Waikato. In fact, on a good day, you can see Mount Ruapehu.
Oh, nice.
So it has a long-standing history in Maori, but it came about to become a reserve because it was part of a big sheep station, and that was owned by David Johnson. And in his will, he left a very substantial amount of money to a trust, which is the David Johnson Trust, but he also left this piece of land, which is the back of his farm, to a private trust. He set up a private trust. David Johnson was a crusty old guy, and he didn't want to leave it to DOC, he didn't want to leave it to regional council, he didn't want to leave it to district council. He seemed to have had run-ins with all these people. So he decided to leave it in a private trust, and he left a bit of money behind with it. It's a private reserve. It's managed by a trust. It's looked after by a big group of, we call them Friends of Pukemokemoke, and it's set up in perpetuity as a private reserve. So it has a long history, and it has a short history, and it has a future history as well, because it will remain in private ownership.
What's the advantages of having it as private ownership?
Well, there are some advantages, there may be some disadvantages, but to me and my committee, and I'm the chairman of the Board of Trustees, and I see it as an advantage because we can make quick decisions. We can make decisions which suit us. We don't have to go legislatively. We don't have to fulfill any district council requirements. And we're very nimble. We move quickly. Yeah. We can do things quite quickly. And we can get in professional help as we need to. But we have the disadvantage, of course, we don't have access to the funds that district and regional council have. Although, in fact, in the last month I've got big grants from both regional council and district council. We can talk about that later.
Oh, okay, that's good.
So we're able, and we're able as a environmental group to access funds from a whole range of agencies, both central government, local government, and also other private funding agencies, whereas other groups like DOC have difficulty doing that because they are government funded.
Oh, that's interesting. It's the only one I know of that's private. I'm sure there's other ones, but
yes, I'm sure there are, but I don't know of any.
Okay.
It's a small area, as you say. It's 100 acres, 40 hectares.
Yeah.
We sometimes call it the 100-acre wood. And when it was left, it was in a bad state, I have to say. It was the back end of the farm.
Yeah.
It was full of cattle in the winter because they overwintered in there. So it was eaten out totally. It was full of weeds. It was pampas and privet and gorse and blackberry and honeysuckle, you name it. It was full of weeds. And that's been a work for us, of course, to get rid of those. It was full of animals. Possums were rampant through it. Stoats and rats all the way through it. So while it was, when it was handed over to the trust, a wonderful example of lowland forest, it was in fact in bad condition.
So what are your goals for the future for the area?
Well,
because there's been a lot of work done already around.
Well, there has, and let's just talk about what we've done so far and put that in the context of the future. We have not totally, but virtually eliminated most of the weeds.
Oh, really?
We've taken out enormous quantities of privet. All the lowland area by the stream was a wilderness of privet.
Mm.
There were about 10 acres of solid privet, like solid, you could not get through it. And that privet we've taken to. And around the edge of the bush, the climbing honeysuckle was climbing to the top of some of the trees.
Oh, wow.
Up to 40 and 50 metres up the side of these trees. And because we're next to a quarry, because Pukemokemoke has got two parts to it. The northwestern end is a quarry,
Mm-hmm.
and the southeastern end, our end, is the bush reserve. And quarries throughout New Zealand always have pampas, terrible weed of quarries in other places. So pampas kept coming through. So we have pampas continually getting into the reserve, and we have to spray it often. And privet got in at an early stage as well. And we've managed to get rid of those. We've taken to the privet. We took to the privet manually by cutting it and coating the cut stem, and that was hard work. That was terribly hard work. And after a while, after 2 years of going at it like that, we decided we've got to get some machinery in.
Yeah.
So we got a great big mulching machine, which we call Terex. It's a Terex machine. We call it T-Rex, of course, and it would take down 6 metre tall privet. We would grind it down to the ground to mulch. And we planted grass into that, and around the edge we planted native shrubs and trees. We've planted about 8,000 native shrubs and trees in the last 10 years.
Oh, that's a lot.
All the way along the river, and everywhere where we've taken out privet, we've planted natives. Or we have grass, and we mow the grass.
Yeah.
But some of the area into the grass we've planted manuka, and we're starting a natural, or an artificial but natural regrowth of the forest.
Oh,
and in
nice.
fact, in a week's time, we'll have a working bee there, and we'll be planting another 400 native trees into that area.
Oh, wow.
And we have volunteers who do that.
How many volunteers do you normally get?
Well, I have a list of 60, and to working bees we get anything between 10 and 20.
That's pretty
people
good,
on that
actually.
list who come and voluntarily work in the area, particularly in the winter when we do planting,
Mm-hmm.
and in the summer when we do weeding. But not only have we eliminated weeds, with an arrangement with the quarry, who've taken on the total predator control of the whole mountain.
Okay.
Their end, and the quarry owns about the same area, and our end, they've undertaken to do all the predator control. And the last assessment, which we have every year, the tracking tunnels, which are used to find out how many animals are left,
Mm-hmm.
showed that we had 0 possums, 0 stoats, and believe it or not, 0 rats.
Wow.
So it's been a wonderful exercise in eliminating those, and the bird life there, particularly in the autumn when the podocarps, that's things like tortora, kakati, are fruiting. Bird life is absolutely astounding.
Oh,
We have
wow.
wonderful tui, and of course it was part of the Halo project a few years ago.
What was that?
The Halo project was set up by council, regional council, city council, and with Landcare to establish the areas around the city which had nesting tui in them.
Oh, okay.
Because it was an aim to bring tui back to the city, because, would you believe it, until 4 or 5 years ago there were no tui in the city. And the areas that were identified had intensive predator control, particularly stoats and rats. And ours was one of those. And following on that, the quarry has taken over the management of that, and we have lots of tui, pigeon. We've got kaka in there now.
Oh, nice.
Lots of other birds.
Kaka are one of my favourites.
Yeah,
The cheeky little sods,
yeah.
eh?
We have quite a few kaka. Just recently arrived, and I think they might be resident in the bush. And we are now one of the sites where tui can breed and move into the city, and of course they're breeding in the city now.
Oh,
The whole
nice.
Halo project's been a wonderful example of how you can manage areas of bush for good bird life.
Because you don't have a predator fence or anything, do you?
No, we have no predator fence, but we have intensive trapping every year we have a chap who comes in and does. We've got across the whole area. I think we've got 250 bait stations, and we've got traps for things like feral cats. We've been catching cats, and traps for rats. And then every year in October, a company comes in and independently with tracking tunnel, which is a tunnel in which animals can go and they leave their footprints.
Yeah.
And that footprint can be assessed, and that it's a standard process now.
Yeah.
They also have little cards, we call them chew cards,
Oh,
which is a bit of core flute in which they push peanut butter. And of course many of the animals can't resist peanut butter. And the beauty of it is they come along and they chew the card, and you can tell by the shape of their tooth marks what animal, whether it was a mouse, whether it was a rat, whether it was a possum, whether it was a stoat.
Okay.
And so both the footprints and the chew mark tell us how many animals are still there. And as I say, last October, we're due for another one in a couple of months, we had 0.
So does it give you an accreditation as a pest-free zone, or?
Well, no, there's no one doing accreditation, but it means if we wished, and we are discussing this, we wish to bring in other birds that are not there at the moment, that would provide a background to re-establishing populations. I mean, the birds that have been thought of were the hihi, or the stitch bird, or the robin. Those are possible. We thought about weka. Now that weka are a lovely bird.
Yeah.
Cheeky bird. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, we do allow dogs on lead in there.
Yeah.
And dogs and weka don't go together.
No.
No, so we had to ask ourselves, could we restrict the place for dogs? But we thought, even if we restricted it for dogs, there are farmers all the way around who have dogs, and we could not stop them.
Yeah.
The dogs would be through there chewing up the weka.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a dog owner and I love taking my dog in the bush, but they are terrible for birds.
Oh, yes.
And I get quite annoyed with people that leave them running around at night or don't have them under perfect control.
Yeah, we have a notice at the gate saying dogs are welcome, but they should be on a lead.
Yeah.
And about 50% of people have them on a lead. And now and again, that's actually mainly because the reserve is open for children as well. And we have a number of preschool groups. Can you believe? 6 preschool groups come and do coursework there. They're lessons.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And they take children into the bush to teach them all sorts of things, obviously, to do with themselves and conservation and so on. And it's wonderful for kids.
Yeah. Well, I took my son there for his first ever bushwalk.
All right.
Yeah, we climbed to the top and we had a picnic and he had a thoroughly good time.
Yes. Yes, well, there's nothing worse than for a young kid to have a great big dog bounding up to them, friendly of course, but they don't know that. I mean, put some kids off dogs for life. So we try and restrict movement of dogs if we can.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Why do you think it's important to have places like how's this again? Pukemokemoke.
That's right, Pukemokemoke.
Pukemokemoke. Around.
Well, you know that prior to both Maori and Europeans arriving in New Zealand, the majority of New Zealand was covered in forest.
Yeah.
Look at the Waikato. The whole of the Waikato was covered in forest. And all of the lowland areas of New Zealand were in forest. There were a few natural lowland grasslands, but not very much at all, even in the South Island. Otago probably were, but even the South Canterbury, where you think it's a grassland habitat, no, there were forests. First of all, Maori, of course, burned a lot of forest down.
Yeah.
And then Europeans, they finished off the act.
Yeah.
And we've lost enormous amounts. So, in fact, we at the cities don't recognise the fact that our natural environment is a forest one. And we have very few natural relics of that. Around the Waikato we've got a few. Think of the Hakaramatas and Parongia, Kakapuku, places like that.
Yeah.
And Pukemokemoke is one of those. And we tasked ourselves with the aim of producing an example of typical lowland New Zealand forest.
Okay.
We're fortunate in that we've got, and it was milled in the 30s, 40s and 50s it was milled for big totara, matai, kauri, and there was in fact a log hauler on the site pulling logs out. But fortunately in those days they were only interested in the really big trees. They've left us some very nice sized trees.
Yeah.
It's one of the better places where you can find matai, big rimu, big totara.
Yeah.
And in the hardwoods we've got particularly tawa and rewarewa, and on the flats pukatia. So we have, in fact, it's very rich in species. We've got a very rich fern flora, and we've got a wide range of some of our biggest trees.
Yeah.
And we're wishing to preserve that and to show people this is what New Zealand used to look like. So really, it was a challenge to try and reproduce as naturally as possible the type of flora and environment that we had 100 years ago.
Yeah. Because very little of New Zealand is as it was 100 years ago. Even our heavily forested areas.
That's right. Yeah.
Especially with pests and mammals and that. Is there any bats out there?
There are. Yes, we have one of the best bat populations in the whole of the Waikato. People are finding bats all over the place, but we've had several bat surveys, and we have a large number of bats, and we have, in the past few years, had bat evenings out there. We get people in the evening, and we had one last year, which was we had bats and moths and glowworms and stars. We had the opportunity to look at all four of those in the evening.
Oh, fantastic.
You can't see the bats actually, but you can hear them. You have little electronic devices which can pick them up. And in the log hauler site, which is the main grass area, it's one of the best environments. All around the trees there, in the evenings, there are dozens of bats.
Okay, because I've lived in Hamilton here for 10 years now, and I didn't realise we even had bats until about a year ago. And I'm yet to go out and do one of the bat tours, but it's on my list of to-dos.
Yeah, well, Pukemokemoke is the control site for looking at bat ecology relating to the new road, the new expressway that's going through, because the expressway is going through and by some native bush areas which have bats in them. And they're looking at the populations in those areas to ensure that the roadworks associated with the expressway don't disturb that habitat. And Pukemokemoke, which is off that site, has been used as a control site. They're following the population there and ensuring that it doesn't go up and down as a control to looking at where the road sites are.
Well, that's interesting. So is there a lot of studies and stuff happen out there?
Yes, we have a number of students who are doing work all the time, and any student who wants to work out there is welcome. In fact, the public is welcome all the time.
Yeah.
It's an open reserve. We have a gate on the river access, but that's only to stop vehicles.
Yeah.
We can get in ourselves with vehicles, but the public don't bring vehicles in. There are walking tracks. You walk to the top, it's 160 metres up to the top, wonderful views. But our big project right at this moment is dealing with the Kauri dieback disease, because we have one of the southernmost areas of natural kauri in the country. On the ridge leading up to the summit, there are a large number of kauri, including some quite big ones. And as you'll know, Kauri dieback is moving south from the north, and many thousands of trees in the north are dying from this disease, Phytophthora, which is a root disease which is killing big trees. It's now got into the Coromandel at Manaia and is moving south. The way to prevent the ingress of the disease is to wash boots. Wash any soil, because that's the way it's transmitted. It's transmitted by walking through and carrying the spores of the disease on your boots and leaving them in the soil.
You provide wash stations there too, don't you?
Yes, in fact, just 3 hours ago I was talking about that to one of our volunteers. We've got 2 boot wash stations up there. We're moving them down to the gate so that actually now, as of 10 days' time, everyone going into the reserve will have to wash their boots with a detergent which kills the spores. But at the same time, we are going to produce a raised wooden walkway through the Kauri area. That's 360 metres of raised wooden walkway, so no, you can't walk on the soil.
Yeah.
And
because kauri roots are quite sensitive to walking as well, aren't they?
Yeah, yes, they are. They are not more sensitive than many other species, but they certainly have a lot of superficial roots.
Mm-hmm.
But we hope to have the walkway right through the Kauri area by the end of the year. And in fact, we have our first big working bee there next Wednesday. It's Wednesday today, but Wednesday the 17th we'll have a number of people from ANZ Bank through volunteering Waikato.
Oh, nice.
This is a group, because they manage a corporate working bee, so many of the big corporate companies give their staff a day off a year to go and do some good works.
Oh, good.
And we've got ANZ, I think there's 6 or 7 coming on Wednesday, and they're going to be making the first inroads into the development of this walkway. We've put a container on site, and we're going to be setting up a workshop there to start producing the walkway. We've got grants from Regional Council and District Council, over $30,000 to purchase all the materials and do the work.
Very nice. Do you have much trouble getting grants, or is it fairly well received with that sort of thing?
I don't want to be boastful, but I don't think we've ever been turned down a request for grants.
Oh, good. To me, that shows that that people really care about these areas in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm. Well, what we do out there has significant credibility, and that's what we keep on saying. If you're a credible organisation, if you have good contact with the public, if you're well received by the public, we find that it's not difficult to get grants. District Council have given us nearly $20,000 for the walkway. Regional Council has given us money as well, and we've had grants. In fact, in the last 10, 12 years, we must have brought in $100,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, using big machinery to get rid of privet is not cheap. It's $1,000 a day for a machine.
Well, we hire machinery at work, and it's definitely not cheap.
Yes. So we had 2 machines operating there for a few days. It can eat up $8,000 or $10,000 very quickly, and then buying plants, of course. We're putting up, what I say, 8,000 to 10,000 plants at $3 to $4 each. Eats up the money.
It's pretty,
and so it goes on.
Oh, that's really good. I think that's covered a lot of really good information about a really great area.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for joining us. So if you are wanting to have a look at Pukemokemoke. I always struggle with it. Pukemokemoke. Where can people find out where it is and stuff?
Well, if you go on the website and just put Pukemokemoke, 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 you'll get a whole lot of websites, a whole lot of information in various websites. There's directions there, but briefly how to get there is you go north past Gordonton, take the first major turn to the right, which of course goes past Woodlands, and to Puketaha, and drive about 10 or 12 kilometres and you'll see a quarry. That's one end of the Pukemokemoke bush, and the other end is us, and you'll see a road sign. You can't miss it. It says Bush Reserve, drive in there. Unfortunately, our road in is a mess at the moment. We've got lots of potholes in it. Anyone out there has got a grader, would like to come and grade our road? Anyone out there who dumps rubbish in reserves, don't do it. Last week I had to take 2 car or trailer loads of rubbish out. People just come and dump their rubbish.
Really?
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That's just, I don't like that. We've talked about this before on our normal podcast, about how bad New Zealanders are at littering on roads, like throwing litter out the window and stuff like that. I don't get it. We live in a fantastically beautiful country.
But on the other hand, when we first got going, some members of the committee said, we've got to put rubbish bins around it. And I said, no, there'll be no rubbish bins out there. That's what invites littering.
Yeah.
You see these great big full rubbish bins vomiting their rubbish in places?
Yeah.
The result is, in fact, I've seldom had to pick up rubbish in the reserve.
Oh, okay.
Because And in fact, what happens is that most people bring out their rubbish, but if any rubbish drops, the people who go in, they'll bring it out. In fact, the other day, our whole group of preschool kids were walking out holding rubbish, because the teachers, say you pick up that. There were a few bits, and they were holding and bringing it out, and they were dealing with it. It's a good educational place.
That's fantastic. I've learnt a lot more about the place. That's good. We'll leave it there. I'll have a search and find some of the good websites, and I'll put some links to them.
Good on you,
in this video, and hope to catch you guys next time. Please subscribe and like and share. Thank you guys.
Bye.